Okay, let's continue on with the investment policy statement. All right, what else does the investment policy statement do? It establishes a standard of performance. How are we going to measure and report performance? Okay, the returns from all investments are to varying degrees captive to the returns of the markets in which they operate. What I mean by that is, if the stock market is up 10%, whatever index that you use as a benchmark, and you have a diversified portfolio, do not expect the portfolio to be up 15%, 16%, 18%. The returns that an investment portfolio will generate are largely a function, greatly a function, predominantly a function of how that asset class did. We are all captive to how the asset classes do. Now, you want to take a flyer and put 100% of your investments into one stock and you're up 75% in a year, good for you. But just know this, if you can be up 75%, that's right, you can be down 75% just as easily. There are no sure things, okay? All right, so returns must be judged in the context of how the markets did during the period. And this is called relative performance. We've looked at this before, absolute performance and relative performance. Managers and clients must agree on performance goals. We must agree on risk tolerance related to the portfolio. So don't let a client tell you, well, I want 18% a year out of my portfolio. If they tell you that, you tell them to go find another manager. Okay? All right. The investment policy statement helps with management succession. Who will continue to manage your portfolio? As an example, I've worked with a lot of charitable organizations in my career. A charitable organization has an investment portfolio. The charity has hired a professional investment manager to manage the portfolio. The charity has an investment committee, this is very standard, that oversees the portfolio along with the investment manager. Each year, the membership of the investment committee changes. Who's on the investment committee? Usually financial people in the community. Most charitable organizations are dominated by bankers and insurance people, and they put these people on the investment committee, and they're always second-guessing the manager. Okay? All right, the investment policy statement helps the members understand the goals, the constraints, and the practices agreed upon by the members. So the members get together and agree on what the goals are and how we want this portfolio managed. And if the committee wants to find a new manager, they show the policies. So what they do is they send letters out to managers and say, we'd like for you to bid on our portfolio, and here are the investment policies that we have. Okay? So each manager knows what they're being asked to do. Okay? Make sure you got that. Okay, so the investment policy statement also governs communication. So communication is so critical in all of life and as well in the investment business. The key to a successful investment management relationship is communication, and sometimes that can be really difficult. I have found in my career that some people get adversarial with their investment manager, and that is a scary thing. Thinking that your investment manager is working against you, and sometimes that happens. And you have to be careful with clients like that. Honestly, sometimes you just want to tell clients like that, this just isn't working out. Okay? The manager should report to the client no less often than quarterly, so let the client know how they're doing. And the items to be covered include how their absolute performance, their relative performance, the transactions that have been done, the investment strategy that you follow, market events and market conditions. Okay? These are things that you talk about with your clients. Send them a letter, if nothing else, send them a letter explaining all these things that are going on. Okay? The manager should inform the client of any and all significant changes in the investment strategy. If you've decided as a manager to change things, you need to inform the client. If you decide to use different types of investment vehicles, you need to inform the client. Okay? Remember, although you make the investment decisions, and this is a very important statement I'm about to make, even though you, the manager, make investment decisions, the assets belong to the clients. The money is not yours. If you are managing money for other people, never, ever, ever forget the fact that the money does not belong to you, it belongs to them. Okay? You are there to advise and to help, but it is not your money. Be humble, people. For example, I had a partner who decided to change the asset allocation for several of his clients. He made that decision. He also decided to substitute exchange-traded funds for most of the stocks in the portfolio. So the portfolios had mostly individual stocks, and he decided he was going to change the asset allocation and also move from individual stocks to exchange-traded funds. He did not plan to change his fee level despite these changes from picking individual stocks to using ETFs. And there's a big difference between trying to pick individual stocks and using ETFs. Okay? He left the transactions on my desk and went on vacation. I came in one day, on a Monday, I knew that he had left Friday afternoon for vacation. He didn't communicate anything to me. I came into my office, there was a note and a stack of orders. He had not communicated with his clients. I immediately picked up the phone and called him and said, have you talked with your clients about this? And he said no. He just asked me to do the transactions. And I refused. I reminded him that our investment policy statement required us to talk with clients about changes in asset allocation and changes in the securities that we were using. And when he said he hadn't talked to the clients, he responded by saying, I'm the manager. I make those decisions. I don't think so. You need a little dose of humility, okay? Let's just say that I'm not at that firm anymore. I got out of there because of in part because of his awful attitude. Okay, didn't want to work with somebody like that. Let's see how many slides are in this clip. So we are going through 15, so we have 2 more slides. All right, the client also has a responsibility to let the manager know if there are any changes in risk tolerance or in investment time horizon. Okay, so the manager speaks to the client and the client speaks to the manager. Okay, for example, a doctor client of mine called me to set up a meeting several months ago. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the changes happening in his life and to discuss the asset allocation of his portfolio. In the meeting, he told me he was turning 63. Okay, he had decided he wanted to reduce his work schedule from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. He also told me that because of the gyrations that had occurred in the market over the last 20 years, or 10 years, that were of great concern to him, and as a consequence we agreed to reduce his stock exposure from 65% all the way down to 50%. He had accumulated his money, and now his focus was more on preserving his money rather than growing his money. We also decreased his exposure to smaller, more risky stocks, okay? And we used the proceeds from the sale stocks to buy intermediate term bonds, which had a nice yield at the time. So the client informed me of changes in his life, changes in his retirement time horizon, changes in his work schedule, changes in his attitude toward risk, and I in turn adjusted his portfolio accordingly. All right, so let's see if that's the end of that. Okay, so we are finished with the clip. Which clip are we on here? Bear with me here. We are on clip 2, and we'll move on to clip 3, which are slides 15 through 20. Until then, take a little break and come back refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to go. Shalom.